Hello, hello, welcome back to Tired Old Queen at the Movies. Don't forget to follow us on X and on Blue Sky. Now let's go see the one and only, the Tired Old Queen at the Movies, Steve Hayes.
Oh, Johnny, happy Gay Pride! I thought this year for Gay Pride we would do one of my favorite love stories from 1984, Another Country. Directed by Marek Kanievska, from the play by Julian Mitchell and starring Rupert Everett, Colin Firth, and Cary Elwes. This movie is based loosely on a play, which was a fictionalized version of one of the Cambridge Spies, Guy Burgess. The Cambridge Spies were 5 guys who went to Cambridge together, and they all became communist spies in the 30s and 40s until the early 50s when they were found out. Burgess and McLean defected to Moscow and never came back from Russia. Anthony Blunt decided to name names that got a little bit of a respite. And he later became head of the art department at Buckingham Palace for the Queen and in charge of the royal artworks until they got a new regime in and they said, we've had enough of this. He's not naming names. And they took away his knighthood. Now, the premise behind this is a fictional version of Guy Burgess's life. He wanted to examine why he defected, why he decided to go with communism.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if communism were really true?
It is true.
So it's really about the British public school system and how rigid it was.
What's this?
I'm very sorry, Fal. I thought
Juniors are not required to think, Wharton. They are required to obey orders, and I told you to make this cup shine.
Yes, Fal.
These boys were sent to this school to prepare them for the upper classes and to become diplomats and to become businessmen.
Sir Guy Bennett, KCVO, KCMG.
Contemptible sycophant in the service of the bourgeoisie.
Well, of course, all these boys in one school, they're all having sex. They're all doing things, right? Well, Guy, who's played by Rupert Everett, he wants to be out. He wants to be an out gay man. He's very flamboyant. He doesn't hide it, and it always gets him into trouble.
There's a hollow at the base of his throat that makes me want to pour honey all over him and lick it off again.
Bennett.
He befriends Judd, who is played by Colin Firth, and Judd has been a communist from the get-go. And because they're two outcasts, they become best friends. And they try to guide each other through this process.
And it's all just a passing phase.
Exactly. Just like you being a communist.
Uh-huh.
And it's a brutal process. And Rupert Everett falls in love with this young, beautiful blonde boy played by Cary Elwes. And they've been looking at each other and stuff. And they start this romance. One of the things about this film that's so wonderful, it's very romantic. It's not about anybody in bed. Nobody's ever shown in bed. But it's about furtive glances and hand-holding, and they sneak away out of their dorms at night, and they cuddle inside a boat, and there's this wonderfully romantic scene where Rupert Everett is holding Cary Elwes and just stroking his beautiful hair, and they're just so happy together. It's very, very sad because there's this other one boy who wants to become a prefect, and he really hates Rupert, so he keeps going after him, setting him up.
You lost us the pot. Oh, surely not just me, not all on my own.
They pull him before this board, and they're all governing this situation.
You were far and away the worst-dressed soldier on the whole parade.
I'm not a soldier, I'm a schoolboy, and so are you.
And he says essentially, look, I'm not the only person who's going to bed with other boys in this place. I will go to the dean and tell him every single person that I know that I've slept with and that I know is sleeping with other boys. So he has to do blackmail. And he finally gets a letter that Rupert has sent to Cary Elwes, trying to get an arrangement going. And for that, tries to get Rupert to say who the person is that he sent this love letter to. And Rupert won't do it. So he's caned. And in those days, it was so brutal. They lean you over a public caning, and they leaned you over these tables, and they take this bamboo cane and they just wail you on the backside. It's so, so brutal and humiliating. He has come to the conclusion that because of his being a gay man and being out, he's never going to become the diplomat that his family had set him up to be. And he gets very discouraged because he knows that the outside world of England as an adult is just a larger version of the world he's been living with in torture at this public school.
I'm not going to pretend anymore. I'm sick of pretending. You think it's all a joke, well, it's not.
It's a really, really wonderful, wonderful story, and it's acted to the nth degree. Rupert Everett got a BAFTA nomination for this. This got him a lot of notoriety, but he was always hard to work with and sort of arrogant, and he came out as a gay man, openly gay man, and it really, in the 80s, it really damaged him. It kept him from getting leads. And it was too bad because he was perfect. He's so sensitive, such a lovely actor. Colin Firth went on to even more wonderful roles. He played Darcy in the TV version of Pride and Prejudice with Jennifer Eel, and he won a lot of awards for that. He played versions of Darcy in all 3 of the Bridget Jones books, which are based on Pride and Prejudice, you know. And then he got an Oscar for The King's Speech. He also got an Oscar nomination for the film version of A Single Man, which was based on the novel by Christopher Isherwood, which was heartbreaking. He's a wonderful, wonderful actor. Cary Elwes, as a result, was cast as The Princess Bride. He got Lady Jane and The Princess Bride, and The Princess Bride was such a huge hit. It just set him up. And then Mel Brooks saw him and cast him in his version of Robin Hood when he realized that besides being pretty, he was really a funny, funny actor. All of the cast in this is so good. They were young British actors who now do all the TV shows now, Midsummer Murders and all that. And I've always been fascinated by the whole story of the Cambridge Spies and what happened with them. There's a really, really good BBC version of the Cambridge Spies if you'd like to find out more about them. Another one is called An Englishman Abroad. It's by Alan Bennett. It stars Coral Browne and Alan Bates. And that is about Coral Browne in doing a production of Hamlet with Michael Redgrave in the late 50s, and they went to Moscow. And Guy Burgess had been exiled for years and was living in Moscow. He came to the performance that night, and he went backstage drunk into her dressing room at intermission, threw up in her sink, and she couldn't figure out who he was. And he leaves and takes her soap and her liquor, her vodka, and leaves. And when she goes back on stage, Michael Redgrave off to the side says, I saw Guy Burgess in the hall. I went to school with him. We were friends in school. And she says, Guy Burgess? Oh, my God. The next day, she gets an invitation from Burgess to come and have lunch. She hikes all the way across Moscow and meets him. And it's Alan Bates, and he lives with this Russian guy in this kind of dicey little apartment. And they spend an afternoon together. And it's one of the best TV plays by one of England's greatest writers, Alan Bennett. If you need a little romantic interlude with a little bit of depth and to show you how far we've come in terms of our gay lives and gay pride, I highly recommend Another Country.
Let's all go to the lobby.
Oh, Johnny, happy gay.
Let's all go to the lobby.
Whoa.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat.